Hey guys, welcome back. I hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to share with you what I read for Bout Books 21 and talk briefly about how I'm going to be doing wrap-ups in 2018. Starting off with what I read for Bout Books 21, if you saw my TBR, you know I had about 4 books on my TBR and was hoping or expecting to get to about 3 of them. In reality, I read 1 book and then continued on with another. In the past, I might have considered this an absolute failure, and by Bout Books standards, yes, it is on the lower side of what I have accomplished during that readathon in the past, but I can't really complain because the 1 book I read I absolutely loved and ended up giving 5 stars. And that book was 10% Happier: How I Tamed the Voice in My Head, Reduced Stress Without Losing My Edge, and Found Self-Help That Actually Works by Dan Harris. Dan Harris is a news anchor at ABC who had a panic attack on live national television and then went on kind of a mindfulness self-discovery journey where he ultimately discovered meditation. 10% Happier is kind of his meditation testimonial, if you will. It's a memoir of the rough patch in his life that led up to him discovering meditation and then his process of starting to develop a meditation practice. Now, I wanted to put this out there at the very beginning that this is more of a memoir than a self-help book, because if you go and you read the Goodreads reviews, people are very angry about the fact that they thought they were getting a self-help manual rather than a memoir. Though I don't really understand how they thought they were getting a self-help book, but whatever, that's beside the point. I do think part of the reason I loved this book so much was that it was a right book, right time situation, because one of my personal goals for 2018 was to set up a more consistent mindfulness practice, and I was really looking for something talking about meditation or mindfulness, you know, one or the other, and I kind of got both in one. I listened to this one on audiobook and I have to say I really loved his narration. He's got this absolute like newsman's voice where it's very measured, very clear, very I don't even know how to describe it. He sounds like a newscaster. And because his sense of humor is very dry, very blunt, and very self-deprecating, I think hearing him say it out loud in that way that he talks was just perfect. And again, this is another book that had me awkwardly snorting and laughing at work. But I would definitely recommend that you go and listen to the full sample for the audiobook before deciding whether you want to listen to this, because I do recognize that that won't be everybody's type of narration. The other thing I really liked about 10% Happier is just the way that Dan Harris talks about meditation in general. He's pretty open about the fact that he is not a religious person, he's not a necessarily very spiritual person, he's a bit of a skeptic, and he's a type A skeptic at that. I've looked into meditation before, I've attempted meditation before, but I've never really found a method of meditation that has clicked with me, mainly because people talk about it in this very airy-fairy, transcend to a higher spiritual plane, higher vibrational self type language, which just does not appeal to me at all. It's not what I'm looking for. However, Dan Harris spends this entire book saying, look, I am a very type A personality. I'm controlling, I'm anxious, I get overly intense and kind of obsessive sometimes, and mindfulness and meditation worked for me. And as somebody who is exactly like what I just described, I'm like, oh, that could potentially work for me. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm far more inclined to believe somebody who has more of my personality traits, that, hey, I found a way that we can make this whole calmness, mindfulness, meditation thing work for you. I'm just far more likely to buy into that. Now, because I did really love 10% Happier and because I am intrigued by his mindfulness meditation practice, I went ahead and I bought his new book, Meditation for Fidgety, Skeptics, and this one is definitely more of a mindfulness meditation manual. So if you are looking for more of a self-help book, I think this is where you would go. So that was 10% Happier, which, like I said, I loved. I gave 5 stars to. And the other book that I read during Bout Books was Am Malala by Malala Yousafzai. I started this one prior to the readathon, and during the readathon I read maybe 100 pages. I realize that isn't a lot, but for some reason during the readathon week I had absolute narcolepsy, and every night by the time I got around to sitting down to read, I would just like completely pass out. So I still am really enjoying this. Taking it slow does not mean I'm not enjoying a book, and I really cannot wait to continue reading this one. One thing I'm really enjoying about this memoir is just how much historical and cultural context she's giving us, because I personally am not at all familiar with the history of Pakistan. I'm not really familiar with their politics or any of that, so I'm finding it very, very helpful to just get a greater understanding of how Malala fits into her world. And I haven't gotten to the horrible part yet, but I think it's coming up shortly. So that's what I read for Bad Books, and now I just want to talk to you guys briefly about how I'm going to be doing wrap-ups in 2018. I had mentioned last year that I wasn't feeling super happy with monthly wrap-ups anymore, simply because my reading tends to be very sporadic. Like, I tend to have a week where I will just devour books, and then I'll have 3 weeks where I don't read anything. So it seems kind of ridiculous to limit myself to just a month end wrap up. So I'm going to take your guys' advice and do recent reads style wrap ups. So whenever I have like 2 or 3 books, I will sit down and film a wrap up, recent reads, whatever. I haven't figured out what I'm calling them yet, but I'm going to do it that way rather than waiting till the end of the month when I have probably forgotten about what I read at the beginning. However, because I like having those videos at the end of the month to kind of signify the break between one month and the next, I'm going to start doing monthly roundup videos where I don't just talk about the books that I've been reading, but I'll talk about some of my favorite videos from the month. I'll talk about what I've been watching, what I've been listening to, other creators, other things, you know, kind of a hybrid between a this is what I've been doing and this is what I've been loving type video. Hopefully you guys will like that new roundup video. I'm pretty excited about it, and I should have the first one of those coming out sometime next week. But that is all I have for today's video, so thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you're having a fantastic day, and I will see you next time. Bye!